before the pine tree ever existed, before it had needles or bark or even a name, there was already a forest here. The forest did not care that the tree had not arrived yet. It was in no hurry. Forests rarely are. It is early morning. Not the exciting kind of morning, just the quiet one. The kind where the light shows up slowly, like it is not sure it should bother anyone yet. The sky is pale, not pink, not orange, just light enough to notice. The forest is standing still, not because it is frozen, but because it has no reason to move. Tall trees are already here, old ones. Some are straight, some lean a little, like they got tired halfway through growing and decided that was good enough. Their branches are wide and calm, nothing dramatic, no hero poses. The air smells like damp earth and old leaves. It smells like yesterday, and the day before that, and many days before that. The ground is soft, covered in needles, leaves, and bits of things that used to be important to someone once. There is a breeze. It is very gentle. It does not push. It does not rush. It just passes through, touching leaves lightly, like it is checking if everyone is still here. They are. Somewhere far off, a bird makes a sound. Just one. Then it stops. The forest does not clap. No one reacts. Silence returns easily, like it never left. Rocks sit where they have always sat. They are not impressive rocks, just regular ones. They do not tell stories. They do not move. They are very good at being rocks. The forest floor is busy in a very slow way. Insects move under leaves. Tiny things do tiny work. No one is in charge. Somehow, it all still works. Light begins to slide between the trees. It does not shine. It rests. It lands on patches of moss and stays there for a while. Moss likes that. Moss is patient. Time here does not tick. It stretches. Minutes feel wide. Hours feel soft. Nothing is counting them. There are trees that have been here for decades. Some longer. They do not remember arriving. They do not remember growing. They just are. Their roots are deep. Their branches know the sky well. A fallen log lies near the center of a small clearing. It fell years ago, maybe longer. No one remembers the sound it made when it fell. Now it is quiet again. Fungi grow on it, slowly, very slowly. They are not in a rush either. If you listen closely, you can hear almost nothing. And that is the point. The forest is not empty. It is full of stillness, full of space, full of time doing what it likes best, which is passing without announcing itself. Somewhere in the canopy, leaves shift slightly. A squirrel pauses, thinking about something important, like nothing in particular. Then it moves on. Its footsteps are soft. The forest allows them. Clouds move above, unseen by most of what lives below. They are slow clouds, the kind that forget where they are going. That is fine. This forest has seen many mornings like this one. It has also seen nights that look exactly like other nights. It does not keep a record. It does not compare. It does not rank its days. Rain has fallen here thousands of times. Snow too. Sunlight has warmed the ground and then left again. None of it stayed long enough to feel special. The soil is dark and rich. It holds layers of old leaves, broken branches, and forgotten seasons. Everything that once stood tall eventually came down here. That is just how things work. No complaints were filed. Roots spread under the ground like quiet conversations. They do not argue. They simply exist near each other, sharing space, occasionally touching, then moving on. This forest was not planted in rows. No one planned it. It grew the way it felt like growing. Some trees crowded together, others left space. No one corrected them. Wind has passed through here for years. Strong wind sometimes. Weak wind most of the time. Today's wind barely counts as wind. more like a suggestion. If you were to sit here, you might think nothing is happening. That would be understandable. You would also be wrong, but gently wrong. The best kind. The forest is preparing for something without knowing it. Or maybe it is not preparing at all. Maybe it is just being itself. Either way, something small will happen here one day. Not today. Today is just another quiet day. A day where light moves slowly, where shadows shift without effort, where no one expects anything new. The ground does not know it will soon hold a seed. The trees do not know a neighbor will arrive years from now. The forest does not plan ahead, and that is why it works. A patch of earth near the base of a tall tree looks ordinary, covered in needles, slightly uneven, moist from the night air. It does not stand out. No one is looking at it. That spot has hosted many things before. Leaves, water, small creatures, bits of bark. It will host many more things later. It does not worry about what comes next. The forest breathes in a slow, invisible way. Air moves. Moisture shifts. Temperatures change by tiny amounts. No alarms go off. Somewhere, far beyond this clearing, seasons are doing their long work. But here, right now, it is just calm. The forest holds space. Space for growth. Space for decay. Space for things that take their time. Nothing dramatic happens. Nothing exciting begins. And that is exactly how this story needs to start. Because before there is a tree, before there is a life measured in rings and years, there is simply a place, quiet, patient, ready without trying. The forest waits, not actively, not eagerly. It just waits the way forests do, and that is more than enough. High above the forest floor, something small is happening, so small that no one notices, which is good, because if forests waited for attention, nothing would ever get done. A pine cone hangs quietly from a branch. It has been there for a long time, long enough to forget why it is there, long enough to stop caring. It is brown, dry, and slightly open, like it is thinking about letting go of something, but not rushing into it. The branch does not shake much today. The wind is mild, more polite than useful. Still, time has been working on the pine cone for months. Sunlight warmed it. Cold nights tightened it. Warm days loosened it again, over and over. A very slow routine. Inside the cone, seeds wait. They are small, thin, light. They do not look impressive. No one would guess they carry big plans. Even they do not know that. One seed finally slips free. There is no announcement, no countdown. It just happens. The seed begins to fall, not fast, not straight. It turns slightly as it moves down, guided by air more than gravity. It drifts, pauses, tilts, and drifts again. If it had thoughts, it might be surprised by how long falling can take. The forest does not look up. The seed passes branches, needles, and empty space. Light touches it for a moment, then lets go. Shadows catch it, then release it again. The seed does not react. It has no reactions. It is very calm about the whole thing. Below, the forest floor waits without knowing it is waiting. The seed brushes past a spider web. The web moves. The spider does not care. The seed continues on, lighter than most of the things that fall here. A bird flies past nearby, busy with bird things. The seed keeps drifting. They do not interact. Their lives are very different. The air slows the seed down. It spins gently, like it is trying to enjoy the trip. No rush. There is nowhere else to be. Eventually, gravity wins. It always does. The seed lands. It touches down on a soft layer of pine needles and old leaves. The landing makes no sound. Even if it did, no one would comment on it. The seed rests. Around it, the ground is uneven. Small hills made of fallen needles. Tiny gaps where moisture collects. Bits of bark. Bits of soil, nothing arranged. Everything useful. The seed lies still. It does not roll. It does not bounce. It simply stays where it landed, like it was meant to be there all along. Time moves on. A breeze passes through and shifts a few needles. One slides gently over the seed, partly covering it. Another follows. Soon the seed is barely visible. This is not dramatic. This is normal. Light fades as clouds drift overhead. Then it comes back again. The seed does not notice. It is already busy doing nothing. Later, moisture arrives. Not rain exactly. Just damp air settling into the forest floor. The needles darken slightly. The soil beneath holds onto the wetness. The seed absorbs a tiny bit of it without effort. Night comes, quietly. The temperature drops a little. The forest cools. The seed remains still. It is very good at being still. Above ground, stars appear, though the seed does not know what stars are. Trees stand in their usual places. Leaves settle. The forest breathes slowly. Nothing else happens. Days pass. Not loudly. Just one after another. Morning light, evening shade. The seed stays where it is. Covered now by a few more needles. Protected without knowing it. Rain eventually falls. A steady, calm rain. Not the exciting kind that floods things. Just enough to soak in slowly. Water moves through the layers of leaves and soil. It reaches the seed. The seed drinks a little. It does not thank anyone. The ground presses gently around it. The seed is now part of the forest floor, not separate, not important, just included. Above, the pine cone still hangs on the branch, lighter now. It has done its job. It does not celebrate. Insects move nearby. One passes over the spot where the seed rests. It does not notice it. That is fine. The forest continues its quiet routine. Wind, light, shade, moisture, dryness. The seed remains patient. It does not know it is being patient. It simply is. Winter comes later. Snow falls and settles gently on the forest floor. The world becomes quieter than usual, which is saying something. The seed is buried deeper now, under snow and needles and time. Cold presses in, the seed tightens, not in fear, just in response. This is part of the process, though the seed does not think in processes. Above, trees stand still under the weight of snow. Branches bend slightly. Some release their load with soft drops. The forest adjusts, the seed waits. Weeks pass, maybe months. Time stretches again. The seed does not count. Eventually, warmth returns. Snow melts slowly. Water seeps down. The forest wakes up a little, though it was never fully asleep. The seed absorbs moisture again. Something inside it changes, very gently. No sudden movement, no rush, just a quiet shift. It does not sprout yet. Not now. It is not ready. That is fine. The forest remains calm. Birds return. Insects move more often. Leaves shift. The seed stays hidden, safe, and unnoticed. This is how beginnings often look. Small, quiet, easy to miss. There is no music, no voice saying this matters. But it does, because a life has found its place, not by choice, not by effort, just by falling. And for now, that is enough. The seed rests, covered and calm, while the forest continues doing what it always does, waiting, without knowing it is waiting. The seed is now fully underground, not deep underground, not dramatically buried, just enough to feel tucked in. Covered by soil, needles, and the quiet weight of being left alone, it is dark down here. Not scary dark, just practical dark. The kind of dark that does not ask questions. Light does not reach this place, and that is fine. Light has done its part for now. The soil is cool and slightly damp. It presses gently on all sides of the seed, like the forest giving a very slow, very patient hug. The seed does not resist. There is nothing to resist, Above ground, the forest continues its routines. Below ground, things are much slower. This is where time really stretches out and yawns. The seed rests. It does not think about growing. It does not wonder what comes next. It does not feel late or early. It has no schedule. It is not checking progress. Honestly, it is doing an excellent job of doing nothing. Around the seed, the soil is alive in a quiet way. Tiny organisms move through it, breaking things down, turning old into useful. They are busy, but not loudly busy. More like politely busy. A small root from another plant passes nearby. It does not bump into the seed. Even if it did, neither would complain. Underground life has very low drama. Water slowly moves through the soil after rain. It does not rush. It seeps. It finds its way through tiny spaces, touching the seed gently, then moving on. The seed absorbs a little without effort. No action required. The temperature stays steady down here. Cold nights above do not matter much. Warm days above barely reach this depth. The soil keeps things calm and even. Very considerate, time passes. The forest experiences days and nights, but the seed does not notice. It experiences moisture and dryness, but only slightly. Everything happens in small amounts, small changes, slow changes. This is not waiting like humans wait. There is no impatience, no checking the time, no sighing. The seed simply exists in a paused state, like a sentence that has not reached its verb yet. Winter comes and goes above, snow piles up, melts, piles up again. The forest creaks gently under cold air. Branches drop snow with soft sounds. None of this reaches the seed in any dramatic way. Underground, winter is just a mild suggestion. The seed tightens itself a little in response to cold. Not because it is uncomfortable, but because this is what seeds do. They follow instructions written into them long before they fell. If seeds had personalities, this one would be very relaxed, possibly too relaxed. It is in no hurry to impress anyone. Nearby, tiny insects pass through the soil. They do not stop. The seed does not greet them. Everyone respects personal space down here. The ground above shifts slightly as animals walk by. A deer passes once. Its steps are heavy but brief. The soil settles again. The seed remains still. Rain comes again. Slow rain. Good rain. The kind that sinks in instead of running away. Moisture reaches the seed and stays for a while. Something inside the seed responds. Not growth yet, just preparation. Inside the seed. Changes begin so quietly they could be missed entirely. Structures soften. Barriers relax. The seed is still resting, but it is resting in a slightly different way now. It does not know this. The soil continues its work, breaking down old needles, mixing minerals, holding everything together without making a big deal about it. Roots nearby continue their slow conversations. Nutrients move. Tiny exchanges happen. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. If someone could listen carefully underground, they would hear almost nothing. Maybe a faint shifting, maybe a gentle movement of water, mostly silence. The seed remains covered, protected, and unnoticed. This is important. Seeds do their best work when no one is watching. Above ground, spring arrives. Snow melts completely. Water travels downward. The soil warms just a little, not much, just enough. The seed feels this change, not as warmth exactly, but as permission. Still, it does not move. It is tempting to think something should happen now. But seeds are very good at ignoring temptation. They wait until conditions are not just good, but steady. Days pass. More rain, more gentle warmth. The soil becomes softer, easier to move through. If one were planning to move, the seed adjusts again. Inside, something small shifts into place. It is still a seed, but not quite the same seed as before. It is closer to becoming something else. Still no rush. This resting period is not empty time. It is full time. Full of preparation, adjustment, and quiet decision-making done without thinking. The seed has everything it needs. Water, protection, time. It does not need encouragement. It does not need motivation. It definitely does not need a speech. The forest above continues its calm life. Birds return fully. Insects hum softly. Leaves appear. Light changes shape as branches fill out. None of this interrupts the seed. It rests through bright mornings and soft evenings, through light rain and cloudy days. It rests while the forest slowly wakes into another growing season. Eventually, the soil warms just enough, often enough. Moisture stays consistent. Cold no longer presses down from above. The signals line up, quietly and politely. Inside the seed, something finally decides that resting has done its job. Not today, not dramatically, but soon. For now, the seed remains beneath the soil, calm and hidden, gathering strength without knowing it. This is not a pause before life. This is part of life, a slow, comfortable beginning wrapped in earth and silence, doing exactly what it is meant to do, resting, and doing it very well. Something changes, not suddenly, not in a way that would make anyone gasp. Just a small, quiet shift deep beneath the soil, the kind of change that happens when no one is watching and no one is waiting for results. Inside the seed, the resting phase slowly loosens its grip. It is not dramatic about it. The seed does not stretch or announce anything. It simply begins to respond. Moisture has been steady. The soil has stayed kind. Temperatures have stopped arguing with each other. Everything feels acceptable. And for a seed, acceptable is more than enough. The first root begins. It does not burst out. It does not hurry. It eases forward slowly, like it is testing the idea of movement before fully committing to it. Just a small extension, pale and soft, feeling its way through the soil. This root is not ambitious. It is careful. It does not want attention. It just wants to know where the ground is solid. The soil welcomes it. Tiny spaces open naturally as the root presses forward. The earth shifts slightly, not annoyed, just adjusting. Soil has been making room for things for a very long time. It is good at it. The root grows downward, not because it knows where it is going, but because that is the direction that feels right. Down is calm. Down is steady. Down is reliable. Up can wait. Water moves nearby and the root responds gently, leaning toward it without effort. There is no decision-making here. Just instinct doing what instinct does best, quietly. The seed above the root stays mostly the same, still hidden, still quiet. The real work is happening below now. The root grows a little more, it pauses often. Not out of fear, just checking in. The soil texture changes slightly here and there. Some areas are looser, some are denser. The root adjusts without complaint. If roots could sigh, this one would sigh calmly. Tiny particles of soil cling to it as it moves. Minerals, nutrients, bits of old things that used to be leaves or bark or something else entirely. The root does not ask questions. It accepts what is available. Nearby, other roots pass at a distance. Older roots, confident roots. They do not interfere. There is plenty of space underground, especially if you are polite. The root continues downward, millimeter by millimeter. Growth this slow does not feel like progress. But it is. Water reaches the root again. This time, the root absorbs more of it. Inside the seed, systems wake up slightly. Not fully awake, more like stretching in bed, above ground. The forest has no idea this is happening. Birds move through branches. Light filters down, leaves shift. None of it reaches this deep. That is fine. The root grows thicker at its base, just a little, enough to feel more secure, enough to know it will not disappear if things change. And things always change. Rain comes again, heavier this time. Water flows down through the soil in slow waves. The root holds steady. It does not float away. It does not panic. It simply stays where it is and takes what it can. The soil presses in slightly with the added moisture. The root adjusts its shape, barely noticeable, flexible, not stubborn. This is not a struggle. This is cooperation. As days pass, the root extends further. It branches slightly, forming tiny offshoots that explore nearby space, not aggressively, just curious. Each small branch feels for water, for nutrients, for stability. Some paths are better than others. The root learns this without thinking. If this were a human process, it would involve charts and plans, and maybe a few meetings. Fortunately, it is not. The seed above remains quiet. It has not broken the surface. It has not made any promises. It is still mostly a seed, but now it has an anchor. The root reaches a slightly denser layer of soil and stops for a moment. It presses gently, then finds a way around. There is always a way around underground. You just have to be patient. The root continues. Temperature shifts above ground do not matter much here. Cold nights pass. Warm days pass. Underground, things stay calm and consistent. The root appreciates that. So does the seed. The root thickens a bit more. Strength builds slowly. Not muscle strength, root strength. The kind that holds quietly and does not show off. Nearby, a small stone rests in the soil. The root grows alongside it, then around it. No arguments. Stones are very good neighbors if you do not expect them to move. The root does not expect anything. As it grows, it sends quiet signals back to the seed. Everything is fine. Everything is steady. It is okay to continue. The seed listens in its own way. More tiny root hairs appear, spreading into the surrounding soil. They increase contact, increase absorption, increase calm confidence. Nothing rushes, nothing pushes. This is slow work done well. Above ground, a breeze moves through the forest. Leaves whisper softly. Light changes shape. Somewhere, a bird lands and takes off again. None of that interrupts the root. Another rain comes. Then a dry stretch. Then rain again. The root adjusts each time. It does not complain about inconsistency. It simply adapts. The soil becomes familiar now. The root knows its textures. Knows where water likes to linger. Knows where nutrients are easier to find. It does not map this knowledge. It becomes it. The seed, supported from below, begins to change more noticeably inside. Energy shifts upward. Preparations continue. Something else will happen soon, but not yet. The root is still growing, still settling, still making sure the ground will hold. This first root is not flashy. It will never be seen. No one will admire it. No one will take pictures of it. And that is exactly why it works. It grows without pressure. It strengthens without applause. It supports without asking for credit. Deep beneath the forest floor, the pine tree's life has truly begun. Not with leaves or height or sunlight, but with a quiet grip on the earth, a simple beginning, a steady hold. The first root does its job, and keeps doing it, calmly and without comment, while the forest above carries on, unaware that something new has officially started, and that is just how it should be. Time passes quietly, slowly, almost lazily. Deep beneath the soil, the root continues its careful work, holding steady, absorbing moisture, spreading just enough to feel supported. Above, the forest waits, unaware that change is stirring below. And then, very gently, a shoot appears. It is not a sudden burst or a dramatic event. There is no fanfare, no fireworks, no trumpets announcing the arrival of new life. Just a tiny green tip pushing upwards, guided by patience and gravity. The soil resists lightly. Not enough to stop it, just enough to make the little sprout feel like it has earned its way out. Inch by inch, it moves, delicate and unhurried. Each push through the earth is soft, careful, respectful of its surroundings. The seed above sends it encouragement it does not know it is sending. The root below whispers steady support, again without thinking about it. Finally, the tip breaks through the soil. It meets the air for the first time. The forest above barely notices. Perhaps a bird glances downward. Perhaps a breeze shifts a nearby leaf. That is all. The sprout does not care. It is busy adjusting to the sunlight that filters through the trees. Not glaring sunlight, not demanding, just soft, diffused light that seems to understand that this is a nervous little newcomer. The first leaf unfolds. A thin, gentle needle, bright and green, quivering slightly as it acquaints itself with the air. Dew clings to its tip. Tiny, weightless droplets that shimmer like unintentional decorations. The needle does not notice. It is more concerned with simply being. Its job is not to impress, just to exist. And in that it excels. Above, the forest continues its slow rhythm. Branches sway lazily, leaves flutter with minimal effort. Birds perch occasionally, shadows shift, light dapples across the ground. The sprout grows in the midst of this calm, unnoticed and undisturbed. The roots beneath stabilize further, anchoring the tiny shoot. Moisture continues to seep in, nutrients follow, all absorbed with no ceremony. The seed itself has begun to fade, its job slowly transferring to the emerging plant. Time moves differently for the sprout. Days stretch like elastic bands. Nights are quiet and cool. The forest provides shelter in the form of taller trees nearby, and gentle wind caresses the needle rather than forcing it. Every moment is measured, precise, perfect for slow growth. The needle grows taller, inch by inch. It does not compete with the grass, the moss, or the larger trees. There is no ambition here. It exists without pressure. Occasionally, it may lean slightly towards sunlight, but it does so without urgency, as if it is simply following a whisper from above. A tiny insect lands nearby, a beetle slow and cautious. It crawls over a patch of soil, investigates a leaf, then wanders off. The needle remains unaffected. Life moves around it, but the needle is content to stand still, to let the world proceed without interference. The sprout grows additional needles, each delicate and soft, forming a miniature crown above the soil. They spread gently, not reaching for glory, just stretching to make room for themselves. The light touches them softly, the dew bathes them quietly, and the wind encourages without pushing. The forest above continues to experience long, slow days and soft, whispering nights. Rain falls, sun rises, birds call, leaves rustle, all of it a gentle accompaniment to the quiet story unfolding beneath and above the soil. The little pine is no longer just a seed. It is a presence, small, unobtrusive, almost shy. Yet it has begun to establish its place. A needle greets the air, and with it, a quiet life begins. Seasons pass. Slowly, spring gives way to summer. Sunlight strengthens, not forcefully, but with consistent warmth. The needle grows sturdier. Another appears beside it, forming a small cluster, an emerging identity. The sprout begins to notice, in its own unthinking way, that it belongs here. The soil holds it. The roots support it. Water reaches it. Light touches it. The forest has not intervened, and this is exactly as it should be. Time continues to stretch. The needle feels the gentle wind. It feels the occasional raindrop. It sways. It bends slightly. It does not break. It is learning the rhythm of the forest in the quietest way possible. And so, with no fanfare, no rush, and no expectation, the pine grows, one needle at a time, slowly, deliberately, calmly. The forest above does not notice. The birds, the leaves, the wind, all continue their routines. Yet a life has begun that will persist for decades, a life that started with a seed, nurtured by patient soil and quiet roots, and is now breathing, however subtly, in the air above. A needle has greeted the air, and the world, in all its soft, slow motion, continues. The first leaf of a quiet life, the beginning of a century of calm, patient existence, and that, for now, is enough. The tiny pine, now visible above the soil, begins its slow acquaintance with the world around it. It is small, fragile, and very much unaware of its potential. Its needles stretch cautiously toward the soft sunlight, testing the warmth, tasting the air, feeling the gentle shifts of the forest. Each movement is careful, deliberate, not rushed, not ambitious. The forest does not notice, but it does not need to. Everything grows in its own time here. Seasons begin their quiet work. Spring comes first, barely perceptible at first. The sun lingers a little longer each day. Water trickles more consistently into the soil. The wind is mild, brushing past the pine's tiny needles, coaxing them to stand upright without force. The pine does not yet understand the concept of seasons. It only knows change, in gentle increments. Summer arrives. The days grow longer. Sunlight filters more strongly through the canopy, warming patches of soil. The tiny pine responds, its needles stretching slightly, strengthening. Water from the soil sustains it quietly. Life above moves briskly, birds swoop. Insects buzz, but the pine does not mind. It observes without judgment, absorbing the rhythm of existence. Every leaf, every drop of dew, every breeze is a lesson in patience. Then comes autumn. The air cools, light softens, turning gold and amber as it filters through the forest canopy. Leaves fall around the pine, forming a soft carpet of brown and orange. The pine stands among them, small and green, a contrast against the muted colors of fallen leaves. It is not afraid. It has no reason to be. The forest teaches it that change is natural, that every leaf that falls nourishes the soil and prepares it for the next cycle. Winter arrives quietly. Frost laces the needles of taller trees nearby. Snow settles gently across the ground, and the pine feels the first weight of cold. It bends slightly under the occasional snowflake, but does not break. Cold is a teacher as much as warmth is. Time slows even further in these months. Days blur, nights lengthen. The tiny pine rests as much as it grows, learning restraint and resilience simultaneously. Through each season, the pine notices subtle patterns. The sun rises in a slightly different place each day. Rain does not fall uniformly. Some areas of soil are wetter than others. Wind carries different scents, different stories. The pine absorbs these lessons quietly. No one applauds. No one keeps a record. The forest does not grade performance. Yet the pine learns. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it begins to understand its own rhythm. In harmony with the rhythm of the seasons, years pass. Slowly, very slowly, the pine grows a little taller, a little stronger with each cycle. Its needles thicken. Its tiny branches stretch, reaching for light but never too far. Growth is patient. It is not a race. The forest does not compete. Each tree moves at its own pace. The pine learns that life is measured in subtle changes, in tiny increments that are often invisible day to day, but become profound over time. The forest floor continues its quiet work. Old leaves decompose. Soil enriches itself, water seeps consistently, the pine's roots expand further, mingling with roots of nearby plants, forming a hidden network of support. The pine does not know it, but this network is as much a part of its life as the sun above. Roots communicate silently, exchanging nutrients, sharing space, and teaching patience in their own understated way. Seasons repeat. Spring brings renewal, summer brings warmth, autumn brings change, winter brings stillness. The pine does not count them. It does not need to. Each cycle leaves its subtle imprint, a stronger root, a thicker needle, a sturdier branch. Life is gentle, consistent, unremarkable to the outside eye, yet profound in its simplicity. Occasionally, wind and rain bring small challenges. A heavy rain might wash away a bit of soil, a gust might bend the pine slightly. These are not emergencies. They are lessons. Adjustments are made. The pine bends, absorbs, recovers. Nature's rhythm is not cruel. It is consistent and predictable, and in that consistency, the pine finds comfort. Birds continue to fly above. Insects buzz and crawl. The forest hums quietly. Life thrives in quiet collaboration, not dramatic displays. The pine watches, grows, and rests. It learns slowly that being small and unnoticed is not a weakness. It is a strategy, a way to exist in harmony with everything else. Patience and stillness are as important as growth itself. Through all of this, the pine begins to recognize the beauty in repetition. Days are long, nights are longer. The sun, the rain, the wind, the snow. They come, they go, they return. The forest moves around it, adapting and adjusting, yet remaining fundamentally the same. The pine moves with it, not resisting, not rushing, simply aligning itself with the rhythm of existence. The tiny pine, once just a seed beneath the soil, has now grown into a small sapling. Its first needles greet the air, its roots anchor it firmly, and its branches begin the slow journey of upward and outward growth. It has learned the rhythm of seasons, and through that rhythm, it has learned to endure. It is still small, still quiet, still easily overlooked, and that is exactly how life here is meant to unfold. Growth is slow, life is steady. The forest does not hurry, and neither does the pine. It has learned the essential lesson of patience, timing, and harmony. And so the pine continues, a tiny witness to the passage of time, learning the quiet ways of the seasons, preparing for decades of patient existence. 10 years have passed, not in a rush, not with fanfare, just slowly as the forest does best. The little pine, once a fragile sprout, is now a small sapling. It has learned more than it realizes. Or perhaps it hasn't realized anything at all. And that's exactly the point. Its needles are thicker now, though still soft. The small cluster of branches has begun to form a modest shape, leaning slightly toward the sunlight, careful not to intrude on neighboring plants. The forest gives it space, generously but without notice. Trees taller and older surround it, some stretching high into the sky, others bent, leaning, quietly declaring their long tenure. The sapling pays them no mind. It is busy with its own slow, deliberate work. The root system below has expanded patiently. Tiny root hairs explore every direction, weaving through soil, around stones, beneath decaying leaves, and alongside the roots of other plants. These subterranean interactions are quiet negotiations, polite exchanges of water and nutrients. No one complains, no one competes, they simply coexist. Above ground, birds occasionally perch on the sapling, perhaps curious about its smallness. A robin hops to inspect the needles, pauses, then flies away. The sapling feels nothing. Not offense, not pride, nothing at all. It simply continues to exist, Leaves swaying gently in the soft wind, rain continues its unremarkable, necessary work. Water seeps into the soil, saturates the roots, moistens the needles. The sapling absorbs slowly, steadily. It has no concept of urgency. If humans were here, they might call it lazy. But in the forest, there is no such judgment. There is only the rhythm of the seasons of growth, of life proceeding without drama. Winter comes and goes again. Snow presses softly against the small branches. A gust bends them lightly. Nothing breaks. The sapling bends back. Flexibility, not force, has become its way of coping. Nature teaches lessons in subtle ways. No one needs to shout for them to be understood. Sunlight returns with spring. The sapling tilts its needles toward the warmth, taking in the light without greed, without haste. Its roots continue to strengthen underground, anchoring it quietly, like a person settling into a familiar home. There is comfort in being stable. There is quiet joy in knowing the ground beneath will hold rain or shine. Through these 10 years, the forest has passed by in its own lazy rhythm. Moss has spread, fungi have grown, tiny insects have wandered and disappeared. Nothing extraordinary has happened. And yet everything has happened. The sapling is alive. The forest is alive. Life has proceeded, incrementally, without anyone noticing or applauding. Occasionally, an animal walks nearby. A deer passes slowly through the clearing. Its hooves press softly into the earth. Nothing is startled. The sapling sways slightly but is unharmed. In a way, it has learned to trust the forest, to trust that small disturbances will pass and the steady work of living will continue. Time stretches differently here. Days blend into nights, weeks into months, months into years. The sapling has been present for 10 of them, and yet it hardly realizes how long it has been. Time in the forest is a gentle, unassuming companion. It does not rush. It does not nag. It simply flows, and everything that lives along with it flows too. Birds, insects, and wind have become familiar friends. Each movement above the soil is noted in the tiniest way. The sapling has learned patterns, where light falls strongest, where water gathers, which roots are neighbors and which are strangers. These lessons are learned not consciously, but as part of the very act of existing. Life teaches itself if you let it. The sapling has learned patience, not because it was told to, but because it had no alternative. Growth is measured in millimeters. Seasons move in quiet loops. Every moment is significant only in its subtle accumulation. Nothing spectacular happens. Nothing remarkable occurs. And that is exactly how a forest teaches endurance. At night, the forest settles. Wind dies down. Leaves stop rustling. The sapling stands quietly, bathed in pale moonlight filtering through taller trees. Shadows move slowly. Owls might call in the distance. Perhaps a fox passes unseen. Nothing disturbs the sapling. It rests as quietly as it grows. Over 10 years, it has learned resilience without being aware of the term. It has experienced change without noticing labels. It has survived challenges without effort or drama. Its life has been calm, slow, and steady, just as it should be. The small sapling remains unnoticed by the world, yet it is establishing its quiet presence. A future tree, one that will stand tall and witness decades of the forest's slow unfolding, has begun to take shape. Not in a hurry, not in competition, just slowly, steadily, patiently, learning the rhythms of life and seasons, and thriving in their quiet, unassuming way. And so, 10 quiet years have passed, no fireworks, no speeches, no urgency, just a small pine sapling, thriving invisibly, growing steadily, and preparing for the long, slow journey ahead. The small pine has now spent more than a decade quietly existing. 10 years of gentle sun, soft rain, and the occasional brushing of wind. It has grown taller, sturdier, and its needles have multiplied. But the forest does not stop for anyone, not even for a tiny pine just learning the ropes of life. Around it, the forest continues its own slow, unhurried growth. Trees that were once distant now stretch higher, casting longer shadows across the sapling's clearing. Some trees grow closely together, their branches interweaving like quiet whispers, while others leave generous spaces between themselves. The small pine learns to observe this spacing without envy or concern. There is no competition here, just coexistence. Sunlight becomes a little more precious. Where the sapling once soaked freely in the gentle light, now shadows from taller trees reach it first. Light falls in patches, dancing slowly with the movement of branches overhead. The pine leans gently toward these beams, stretching where it can, but never overreaching. It learns that growth is not always vertical or obvious. Sometimes it is merely finding space to exist peacefully. Roots beneath the forest floor intertwine with others in subtle, hidden ways. Older trees send their roots outward, forming a network that the small pine becomes part of. Nutrients flow along these quiet underground highways. Water reaches it more easily when shared, and the soil around it becomes richer with the slow decay of leaves and fallen branches. It does not question or analyze this generosity, it merely accepts it. Around the sapling, life teems in small, almost imperceptible ways. Moss blankets roots and stones. Insects crawl through soil and litter, diligently performing tasks the forest does not need to supervise. A snail moves slowly past, leaving behind a faint, silvery trail. A bird lands nearby, hops to inspect a fallen leaf, and flies off again. The sapling's growth is untouched, undisturbed. The forest accommodates its presence without notice or fuss. Storms come occasionally, though they are never dramatic. A gust of wind bends branches slightly. Rain falls steadily, soaking the soil and refreshing roots. The sapling sways but does not break. Its needles glisten, dripping slowly, as though acknowledging the passing shower without any concern. Challenges are not emergencies in the forest, they are small, quiet lessons in flexibility and patience. The forest also grows in a way that does not demand recognition. Neighboring trees rise, some thicker, some straighter, some leaning lazily toward the light. The sapling observes these growth patterns. It does not emulate them. It does not compare. It simply continues to grow according to its own quiet pace, fitting seamlessly into the larger pattern of life around it. Animals continue their routines. A fox moves stealthily in the underbrush. Squirrels leap from branch to branch overhead. Insects hum and scuttle. Everything is fleeting, everything passes, and yet nothing is wasted. Every creature, every movement, contributes quietly to the ongoing life of the forest. The sapling absorbs this rhythm in silence. The small pine's awareness is not conscious. It has no thoughts of achievement or failure, but it begins to sense patterns. Light changes with the seasons. Rain is heavier at times, lighter at others. Nearby trees occasionally drop seeds of their own. The forest's pace is neither slow nor fast, it simply is. By observing and existing within it, the pine learns to move harmoniously along. Seasons continue their patient cycles. Spring brings delicate growth. Summer strengthens the needles and branches. Autumn covers the ground in soft layers of leaves, enriching the soil. Winter presses gently against the forest, testing endurance. The sapling does not fight, it does not panic. It bends slightly, absorbs what it needs, and remains steady. Over time, the small pine realizes, without thinking about it, that growth is not always a competition for sunlight or space. It is about learning the rhythm of the forest, about stretching, adjusting, and coexisting, about taking what life gives without rushing or demanding more. Birdsong and insect hum, the shifting light, the constant but quiet movement of roots beneath the soil, all of it is a lesson. And the sapling learns them well, slowly, imperceptibly, without anyone needing to teach. The forest grows around it. Shadows lengthen and shorten with the sun's slow dance. Branches of neighbors extend, sway, and occasionally shed needles. Roots tangle beneath the surface. Life proceeds quietly, consistently, predictably, and through it all, the small pine grows alongside, unnoticed yet entirely part of this subtle, enduring system. The lesson is simple, though profound. Existence does not require attention. Growth does not demand applause. Patience is not a choice, it is a necessity. And so, the forest continues to expand, slow and steady, while the small pine learns to find its place among giants and peers alike. It leans, stretches, bends, and roots itself. It does not hurry. It does not compete. It simply grows quietly, calmly, harmoniously, as the forest does around it. Life is not a spectacle. Life is a rhythm. And the small pine, now 10 years old and growing, has begun to understand it. The small pine has grown taller now. Not very tall, certainly not towering, but enough that it notices more of the world above it. The forest has settled into its usual rhythm, and the sapling has settled into its own. Days pass slowly, measured in the gentle arrival of sunlight, the soft fall of rain, and the occasional whisper of wind. Rain is frequent, though never dramatic. It does not pour like in stories, nor does it pound aggressively on the needles. Instead, it arrives in soft, steady showers, trickling down the leaves of taller trees, soaking the soil beneath, and quietly nourishing the pine's roots. Each drop is absorbed calmly without fuss, as though the forest and the rain have an unspoken agreement on how life should be maintained. The pine leans into this rhythm. Growth occurs imperceptibly, a millimeter at a time, almost invisible if you blink. Wind is another companion. Gentle gusts move through the branches above, carrying the scents of the forest damp earth, pine resin, distant flowers, and the faint aroma of animals passing unnoticed. The sapling sways slightly, a subtle dance performed without choreography. When stronger gusts arrive, the pine bends further, learning flexibility the quiet way. Resistance is futile, but adjustment is elegant. A small pine must bend without breaking. Its lessons are taught without words, through sensation and movement. Afternoons stretch long in the forest. The sunlight filters lazily through the canopy, creating dappled patterns on the ground. Shadows lengthen slowly, sometimes catching the sapling in brief bursts of warmth, sometimes leaving it in cool shade. The small pine does not mind either. It has learned that sunlight is not an entitlement. Sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't. Either way, life continues. The forest is alive in subtle, unremarkable ways. A beetle crawls along a branch above. Moss spreads slowly on nearby tree trunks. Tiny mushrooms push upward, delicate and quiet. Birds may stop briefly, hopping across branches or perching in the distance, but none linger long enough to disturb the serene pace of the pine's existence. All is ordinary. All is consistent, and in this ordinariness lies comfort. Sometimes rain and wind combine. Drizzle moves with gusts, leaves glisten, and the sapling sways more noticeably. Yet even then, no panic ensues. Each needle, each branch, responds instinctively. Growth continues quietly. Nature does not rush. It adapts patiently and precisely, showing the young pine that endurance is more important than speed. Time continues in a gentle, predictable loop. Morning arrives softly, midday stretches lazily, evening fades gradually. The small pine is content to experience each phase without anticipation or disappointment. It is learning that existence is not about being noticed. It is about being present, rooted, bending, absorbing, and breathing. This is enough. Rain nourishes the soil and the roots. Wind encourages flexibility. Afternoon sunlight warms the needles. Each element teaches in its own slow, persistent way. The forest, in its quiet orchestration, instructs the pine on how to survive, how to grow, and how to remain humble in a world that continues moving, whether or not it is observed. The sapling, now a little stronger, leans gently toward life. Its needles are richer, its stem steadier, its roots deeper. The forest hums softly around it, a soundtrack of rustling leaves, distant birds, and the occasional insect hum. Life is moving, but quietly, almost as if to avoid disturbing the young tree's concentration. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. Seasons continue their patient cycle. Spring brings growth, summer strengthens it, autumn slows it, winter rests it. Through each shift, the small pine adapts. The wind bends it, but does not break it. Rain nurtures it without drowning it. Sunlight warms it without scorching it. Even shadows teach patience, showing that not all space is for immediate occupation. By now, the pine has learned to trust the forest. Its branches sway with wind rather than resist. Its roots reach for water rather than struggle blindly. Its needles soak in the sunlight without greed. Growth is not a race. Life is not a contest. Being is enough. Afternoons grow longer, then shorter, but each one is a lesson in constancy. The forest continues its gentle hum, a slow symphony of ordinary events. And the small pine, rooted and steady, thrives within this rhythm, learning to move with the elements rather than against them. Rain, wind, and long afternoons. These are not obstacles, they are teachers. They show the pine that endurance, patience, and quiet observation matter more than ambition or haste. That life, in its simplest form, is a matter of leaning into what comes, accepting what passes, and growing in the spaces allowed. And so the pine grows day by day, inch by inch, quietly mastering the rhythm of the forest, preparing itself, slowly, unassumingly, for the decades ahead. Time has passed gently, steadily, almost imperceptibly. The small pine, once a fragile seed, then a timid sapling, has now spent 3 decades in this forest, 30 years. To humans, that might sound like a long time. To the pine, it is simply the natural rhythm of life, the slow unfolding of its being, measured in seasons, light, rain, wind, and quiet observation. The tree has grown taller now, though it is still modest compared to the towering elders around it. Its trunk is thicker, firmer. Its needles are a deep green, glistening after rain, and its branches spread with quiet confidence. Not the kind of confidence that demands attention, but the kind that comes from simply existing and thriving within its environment. Roots stretch far below the surface, intertwining with those of neighboring trees, absorbing water and nutrients. This underground network is a hidden web of support, teaching the pine patience and subtle cooperation. It has learned that life is not just about what happens above ground. The invisible world beneath the soil is equally important, shaping every moment of growth without recognition. Over 30 years, the forest has changed around it. Trees that were once small have grown into towering companions. Fallen logs decompose slowly, enriching the soil. Moss carpets the forest floor, fungi spread quietly, and countless small creatures pass through, leaving barely a trace. The pine absorbs all of it. Nothing is wasted, nothing ignored. Even the storms and long winters have left lessons in resilience. Wind continues to be a teacher. Gusts, once alarming, now barely sway the branches. The tree has learned flexibility, bending without breaking, swaying with rhythm rather than resistance. Rain nourishes the roots, sunlight warms the needles, and shadows teach patience. All of these elements have become companions, guiding the pine in its slow, steady journey of growth. Afternoons stretch lazily, as they always do. The sun filters through the canopy, dappling the trunk and branches in golden light. Sometimes sunlight is generous, sometimes it is stingy. The pine has learned to take what comes without complaint, to grow in the spaces provided, and to accept that life is rarely perfect or fair, and that is entirely okay. The forest is alive with subtle activity. Birds flit overhead, insects hum quietly, and leaves rustle softly in a breeze. The tree observes it all without judgment. Every movement, every shift, every tiny change is a lesson in the continuity and patience of life. Growth is measured not in leaps but in inches, in the subtle thickening of a branch, the gentle expansion of needles, the deepening of roots. Through 30 years, the pine has experienced countless seasons, springs of gentle growth, summers of steady strength, autumns of decay and renewal, winters of quiet stillness. It has bent in storms, soaked in rain, and stood in sunlight. Each year has added to its understanding, not consciously, but through the very act of living. The tree has learned endurance without trying. It has learned patience without realizing it. It has learned that life is not about being noticed, but about being. It has grown quietly without applause, without recognition, yet completely alive. Other trees in the forest have grown alongside it. Some have leaned too far and broken. Some have thrived spectacularly. Some have quietly faded. But the pine has learned that survival is not about spectacle. It is about consistency, observation, and resilience. Occasionally, animals interact with it. Birds perch on its branches, deer brush past its trunk, and insects crawl along its bark. The pine does not notice in the way humans might expect. It does not mind. Life moves around it, and it moves with life subtly, slowly, gracefully. After 30 years, the pine is no longer a sapling. It has become a small tree in its own right. Its presence is steady, reliable, and calm. It is a quiet witness to the forest's ongoing cycles, a participant in its slow, deliberate rhythm. It has learned the art of being unnoticed yet vital, of existing without drama, of growing without rush. And so, 30 years have passed. No celebration, no announcement, just life continuing quietly, patiently, persistently. The pine stands rooted, bending with the wind, drinking the rain, absorbing the sun, and growing at its own gentle pace. A life of quiet endurance, measured in seasons, sunlight, and the patient flow of time, a life that is exactly what it was meant to be. By now, the pine is no longer the small, timid sapling that once pushed through the soil. It stands taller, stronger, its needles fuller, its trunk sturdier. Yet it remains quiet, unobtrusive, and patient, just as life in the forest has taught it. Around the tree, the world continues moving, though much of it is subtle and fleeting. Animals pass by regularly, each with its own rhythm, purpose, and brief story. A deer wanders near the roots, sniffing the air, pausing to nibble a patch of moss before disappearing quietly. The pine feels the disturbance only as a faint vibration in the soil through its roots. No attention is needed. No acknowledgement required. Life brushes past, teaching lessons without words. Birds pass overhead in the soft morning light. A woodpecker taps a nearby trunk, sending a gentle echo through the forest. A squirrel scurries along branches, pausing occasionally to glance down at the pine before hopping away. Insects hum, crawl, or fly, sometimes brushing against its needles. The pine does not react, it does not judge. It simply exists alongside the ebb and flow of life around it, steady and enduring. Time, too, moves differently here. Years stretch into decades, and yet each day is measured in soft moments, a beam of sunlight shifting across its needles, a patch of rain soaking the soil, a gentle breeze brushing past its trunk. The pine has learned that time is not a race. It is not a force to fight or conquer. Time is rhythm, consistency, and quiet accumulation. Seasons continue their slow, reliable cycle. Spring brings tiny new shoots, summer strengthens the needles and trunk, autumn lays a blanket of leaves at the forest floor, and winter presses with quiet cold. Each season is a teacher, showing the pine flexibility, endurance, and the slow beauty of transformation. Passing animals teach lessons too. The deer shows gentleness, moving carefully through fragile spaces. The birds demonstrate curiosity and agility, hopping from branch to branch without stress. Insects exemplify persistence, small and numerous, quietly performing work essential to the forest. The pine, in its rooted state, observes all of it in its own unthinking way, absorbing patterns, learning without realizing it. Rain continues to arrive in soft, steady waves. The roots drink, the needles glisten, and the soil remains alive with tiny, unseen movements. Water nourishes more than the pine itself. It nurtures the entire ecosystem surrounding it. Passing animals disturb the soil occasionally, leaving subtle marks, but the pine adjusts without concern. Life moves and life continues, as it has always done. The forest teaches patience not through grand displays, but through these repeated, ordinary events. A fallen branch decomposes slowly, enriching the soil. A leaf drifts down unnoticed, yet feeds microorganisms and root systems below. The pine has learned to value these quiet, often overlooked processes. Growth is not always visible, survival is not always dramatic. Even time itself becomes almost tangible. Long afternoons stretch lazily. Dusk settles gently and shadows lengthen, shifting softly across needles and branches. The sun rises, climbs, and sets again without fanfare. The pine observes and responds, bending slightly toward light, leaning with the wind, absorbing moisture, and growing steadily. 30, 40, 50 years. Time accumulates silently, in increments invisible to anyone not paying close attention. The pine learns that life is about presence, not recognition. Passing animals, passing seasons, passing years, they all teach the same lesson: existence is not a spectacle. It is quiet, patient, and steady. And yet, in its quiet endurance, the pine has become a witness to a century's worth of small, remarkable moments that often go unnoticed by the world above. Rain falls, wind swirls, animals pass, and time moves. The pine bends, leans, grows, and roots deeper, absorbing not just nutrients from the soil, but lessons from every passing day. Its strength is not loud or ostentatious. It is calm, it is quiet, it is persistent, and so life continues. The forest hums softly with activity, yet the pine remains rooted, steady, and patient, growing alongside the rhythm of time, the passage of animals, and the gentle, unceasing flow of seasons. It has learned the most important lesson of all: to endure without expectation, to witness without interference, and to thrive quietly, one slow year at a time. 50 years have passed, half a century. To humans, it might feel like a long, significant stretch. To the pine, it is simply life unfolding as it always has, slow, steady, quiet, measured in breaths of air, drops of rain, and gentle touches of sunlight. The pine is no longer a small sapling. Its trunk has thickened considerably, and its branches spread wider, needles denser and darker than ever. It has established itself firmly in its place in the forest, a quiet presence among taller trees and bustling life. It does not compete, it does not demand attention. It simply is. Roots below have grown deeper and broader, entwining with soil, stones, and neighboring roots. They absorb water, nutrients, and subtle vibrations from passing animals. These roots are the foundation of the pine's calm endurance. They anchor it, not just physically, but as a witness to the slow, steady passage of time. Above ground, life moves in the same gentle rhythm it always has. Birds pass, insects hum, squirrels scurry, deer wander. The pine feels them, not consciously, but through subtle shifts in the air and soil. It notices without reaction. Passing life is normal. Life that moves and shifts is expected. And the pine continues to breathe alongside it all. Seasons cycle in their quiet, unhurried way. Spring brings fresh growth, tender new shoots emerging alongside older, established needles. Summer warms the trunk and needles, stretching them towards sunlight. Autumn drops golden leaves at its roots, enriching the soil. Winter blankets the forest in stillness, frost and snow gently pressing on branches. 50 years of these cycles have taught the pine resilience without it realizing, patience without requiring thought, and endurance without any need for recognition. Time is measured not in calendars or clocks, but in breaths, the slow inhale of wind, the exhale of warmth from the sun, the subtle rhythm of day turning into night. Each moment is small, unremarkable, yet accumulates quietly into decades of life. The pine has learned this rhythm naturally, its needles rising and falling with air currents, its roots expanding in tandem with the unseen currents of water and nutrients below. Rain continues to nourish. The pine has seen hundreds of showers, from the softest drizzle to the more insistent summer rains. Each drop adds strength, hydration, and calm patience. The needles glisten, catching the light in subtle ways, as if whispering, "Why endure? We exist. We thrive quietly. Wind is a teacher still. Gentle breezes sway the branches, and strong gusts bend them without breaking." Storms come, as they always do, but the pine has learned to move with them, to respond with flexibility rather than resistance. 50 years of swaying and bending have given it quiet strength, a resilience that does not boast, does not show off, yet is entirely reliable. Passing animals continue their soft interactions with the forest. Birds land briefly, deer brush the forest floor, and small insects explore branches and bark. Each is a gentle reminder that life is continuous, flowing, never stagnant. The pine observes, absorbs, and continues. Its presence is steady, patient, and unshakable. Half a century of breathing has taught the pine subtleties humans often miss. To survive is not to rush. To endure is not to compete. Growth is not about height or volume. It is about consistency, patience, and the quiet accumulation of strength. Life unfolds slowly, in layers, in small increments that eventually reveal their significance. The pine is now a silent observer of generations of change. Leaves fall and decompose, new seedlings sprout and push upward, animals live and die, storms come and go. All of it passes, and yet the pine remains rooted, breathing, and quietly thriving. 50 years of sunlight, rain, wind, and quiet interaction have shaped it into more than just a tree. It is a testament to patience, a monument to endurance, a witness to the slow rhythm of life, and it continues as always rooted and steady, inhaling and exhaling with the calm heartbeat of the forest. Half a century has passed, Yet the journey is far from over. The pine continues to breathe, to grow, and to learn inch by inch, year by year, becoming ever more resilient in its quiet, unassuming way. The pine has grown taller now. Its trunk is thicker, its branches longer, its needles denser. It has spent decades quietly observing the forest, bending with the wind, absorbing rain, and learning the subtle rhythms of life. Yet, even with half a century of experience, the forest still has lessons to teach. Some come in the form of storms. Storms arrive without warning. Sometimes the wind picks up suddenly, shaking branches nearby. Rain pours in sheets, drumming softly or insistently on needles and soil. Thunder occasionally rumbles in the distance. Lightning flashes briefly, illuminating the forest for a heartbeat before disappearing again. The pine has felt dozens of storms by now. At first, the gusts would bend it in ways that seemed impossible. Rain would press down on its young branches, and the soil would soften beneath its roots. It would sway, quiver, and stretch in ways that felt dramatic, almost alarming. But the pine has learned over decades storms are temporary. They arrive, they test, and then they pass. Even strong storms, the kind that snap weaker branches or bend taller trees dramatically, leave the pine relatively unscathed. Its resilience is quiet, almost invisible but entirely reliable. It has learned to bend without breaking, to absorb without resistance, to stand firm while remaining flexible. There is wisdom in stillness, and the pine has practiced it silently for decades. After each storm, the forest returns to calm. Leaves settle, the soil absorbs excess water, and sunlight returns to dapple the forest floor. The pine feels the relief in the gentle warmth on its needles and the soft grounding beneath its roots. Even the debris left behind, the fallen leaves, the broken branches, becomes part of the forest's slow rhythm, nourishing soil and teaching lessons in resilience and renewal. The storms themselves, dramatic as they feel in the moment, are eventually forgotten. The next day, the sun rises again. Birds resume their calls. Insects continue their quiet work. Moss grows in the shaded corners, and roots absorb water and nutrients as always. Life moves forward, and the forest, and the pine, continues its steady pace. The pine has grown wise in the passage of storms. It no longer fears the temporary chaos of wind and rain. It understands that these events are part of life, natural occurrences that shape growth rather than impede it. Strong gusts bend it, but they also strengthen it. Heavy rains soak its roots, but they also feed its resilience. Challenges come, but they do not define the long story of life. Animals, too, respond to storms in their own ways. Birds take shelter in nearby trees. Deer hide under the canopy. Insects burrow into leaves or soil. The pine observes, silently absorbing the subtle lessons of adaptation. Life does not stop for storms. Life continues quietly, patiently, persistently. Over decades, the pine has endured countless storms, some minor, some significant, but none have left a permanent mark. The tree has learned that adversity is temporary, that challenges will fade, and that calm always returns. Its branches may sway, its needles may glisten with rain, but it stands rooted, steady, and patient. Storms may appear dramatic, but they are fleeting in the grand rhythm of decades. The pine, with its quiet endurance, knows that time continues, seasons pass, light returns, rain nourishes, wind teaches, life moves on. And so the storms, though powerful in the moment, become stories for the forest to whisper, experiences that shape growth but are eventually forgotten. The pine, resilient and patient, continues to thrive quietly, inch by inch, year by year, absorbing each lesson and letting the rest pass. through decades of storms and calm. The pine has learned one of the forest's deepest truths: that life is less about the chaos that comes and more about the steady endurance that allows you to weather it, bend with it, and continue growing quietly for decades to come. 70 years have passed. The pine is no longer young. It is a mature tree now, standing with quiet dignity in the forest. Its trunk is thick and textured with decades of growth. Its branches spread gracefully, and its needles form a dense, rich green canopy. Life has been steady, patient, and enduring, and the pine has absorbed every lesson without rush or complaint. For 70 years, the pine has been a silent witness to the forest's rhythms. Seasons have come and gone countless times. Spring has nudged forth new growth, summer has warmed and strengthened, autumn has dropped leaves around its roots, and winter has pressed gently upon its branches. Each cycle has left its mark, subtle but profound, adding resilience, strength, and depth to the pine's being. The pine's life is a quiet service to the forest. Its branches provide shelter for birds and small animals, its needles offer shade to moss and saplings below, and its roots stabilize the soil, preventing erosion. Without thought or effort, the pine contributes to the well-being of the world around it. It does not boast. It does not demand recognition. Yet its presence is invaluable. Over decades, storms, wind, and rain have tested it. Gusts that once would have startled the young sapling now barely sway the mature tree. Heavy rains are absorbed with ease, nourishing roots and soil. Even snow and frost, once foreign and heavy, are now familiar companions, draping softly across branches without concern. Challenges arrive, lessons are learned, and then they pass. Nothing lingers longer than necessary. Animals continue to pass by. Birds nest in its branches. Squirrels leap and scurry. Deer pause under its shade. Insects hum and crawl, performing the quiet work of the forest. The pine does not interact intentionally. It simply exists, providing stability, shade, and shelter without expectation. Its life is a service that is both ordinary and extraordinary, because it is constant. Time flows gently. Decades slip by almost unnoticed. The forest around the pine evolves. Trees grow taller, some fall and decompose. Seedlings rise and take their place. Yet the pine remains a steady presence, rooted and calm, a reminder that growth and endurance are often quiet, unnoticed, and slow. The pine has learned the art of balance. Its branches stretch toward the sun without greed. Its needles catch the rain without excess. Its roots reach through soil, intertwining with neighbors, supporting life both seen and unseen. It has learned that contribution does not need applause. Its service is inherent in simply being. 70 years of breathing, bending, and growing have given the pine quiet strength. Its resilience is profound because it is understated. Its patience is remarkable because it has never been tested in haste. Its endurance is steady, reliable, and natural. The forest around it continues its gentle symphony, rustling leaves, distant birdsong, insects buzzing, and the occasional rustle of a passing animal. The pine is part of this rhythm, both observer and participant. Life unfolds slowly, deliberately, without need for drama or recognition. At this mature age, the pine knows more about life than it could ever articulate. Though, of course, it does not speak. It understands the rhythm of seasons, the passage of time, the gentle weight of storms, and the quiet importance of enduring and serving without expectation. Its life is a testament to persistence, to patience, and to the value of existing quietly yet purposefully. And so 70 years have passed. The pine stands tall, resilient, and steady, continuing its quiet service to the forest, It has learned that life's true value lies not in the attention it draws, but in the consistency of its presence, the patience of its growth, and the calm, enduring contribution it makes to the world around it. The pine has now stood in the forest for decades, its branches reaching steadily toward the sky, its trunk thick and textured from years of patient growth. Life has been calm, slow, and deliberate. And yet, despite its age and experience, the pine notices that the forest around it continues to change slowly, almost imperceptibly, but inevitably, new saplings emerge in the spaces once empty. Tiny seedlings push their way through soil enriched by decades of fallen leaves and decaying branches. Moss spreads over rocks and tree trunks, softening the forest floor. Fungi rise quietly from the soil, performing unseen work that sustains life in subtle, almost miraculous ways. The forest never rushes, but it does progress, and the pine, rooted and steady, witnesses each quiet transformation. Older trees begin to bend, their branches sagging with years of wind, rain, and snow. Some topple eventually, leaving space for the young ones to rise. Fallen trunks decompose slowly, returning nutrients to the soil, nurturing the roots of neighbors. The forest is a place of cycles, and even the strongest, tallest, or oldest trees are not permanent. Change is inevitable, but it is measured, gentle, and respectful of life's continuity. Seasons continue their unbroken rotation. Spring brings delicate green shoots, summer strengthens them, autumn cloaks the forest in gold, and winter presses quietly upon the earth. Even after decades, these cycles are the heartbeat of the forest, a rhythm that the pine has learned to follow without question. Time is slow, patient, and almost imperceptible. The animals that pass by are different now. Some familiar birds have moved on, replaced by new flocks that call differently, fly differently, and bring fresh energy to the forest. Insects, too, shift in species and numbers over the years. Deer still wander, cautiously and gracefully, leaving gentle traces in the soil. Life passes and changes, yet the forest continues its quiet equilibrium. Even the light filtering through the canopy changes. As trees grow taller, shadows stretch differently. Sunlight that once hit the pine directly may now fall more subtly, reaching the lower branches in dappled patterns. The pine adapts, leaning slightly, stretching its needles, finding its place within this evolving mosaic. Growth is not always vertical or dramatic, it is often subtle, adaptive, and patient. Storms, too, continue to occur. A gust of wind bends branches, rain falls softly or steadily, and occasional snow blankets the forest. But the pine, now decades old and resilient, sways with ease. Storms test, teach, and pass. They are temporary interruptions in the steady rhythm of life. And when the forest recovers, new growth takes advantage of the changed landscape. Over decades, the pine has witnessed generations of trees rise and fall. It has watched countless seasons unfold. The forest is always changing, but the changes are slow, deliberate, and natural. Nothing is hurried. Nothing is wasted. Even the small disturbances, the fallen leaf, the passing animal, the shifting wind, contribute to the forest's ongoing evolution. The pine, rooted and steady, has grown wise through these decades. It understands that life is measured not in rapid transformations, but in the accumulation of small, patient moments. Growth is quiet, strength is subtle, endurance is steady. The forest changes slowly, but it does change, and the pine is both witness and participant in this gentle transformation. And so, the pine continues, standing tall among the evolving forest. It bends with the wind, drinks the rain, reaches for sunlight, and endures quietly. The forest changes slowly around it, as does the pine itself. Together, they move in a shared rhythm of patience, observation, and quiet persistence, life unfolding in the slowest, most beautiful way imaginable. A century has passed, 100 quiet years. The pine, once a tiny seed barely breaking through the soil, now stands tall, mature, and steady in the heart of the forest. Its trunk is thick and textured with decades of growth, its branches spread wide, and its needles form a dense, deep green canopy. The forest around it has shifted, evolved, and changed. But the pine remains a steadfast witness, rooted in its place, observing time with calm endurance. Through storms, winds, rains, and snow, the pine has bent without breaking, absorbed without complaint, and endured without hurry. Its strength is not loud or flashy. It is quiet, patient, and understated, a stillness that speaks volumes without words. Life continues around it. Birds nest in its branches, squirrels scurry across its limbs, insects hum and crawl, and deer occasionally pause beneath its shade. The pine does not react, does not compete, and does not demand attention. Its presence is enough. Over 100 years, the forest has changed slowly. Younger trees have risen and grown tall. Some older trees have fallen and decomposed, enriching the soil for new generations. The light filtering through the canopy has shifted. Shadows stretch differently across the forest floor. Mosses, fungi, and plants thrive in the spaces the pine has helped stabilize. Even storms that once seemed threatening are now just part of the natural rhythm, passing and forgotten, leaving subtle lessons in their wake. The pine has learned that life is measured not in dramatic events, but in the quiet accumulation of moments. Each season, spring, summer, autumn, and winter, has left its mark, shaping the tree subtly, teaching patience, resilience, and the value of stillness. Growth is gentle, endurance is slow, strength is unassuming. The passage of time, once invisible day to day, now forms a tapestry of life that stretches back 100 years. Animals continue their routines. Birds land and sing, insects scuttle and hum, deer wander quietly. The forest is alive, yet the pine remains motionless in comparison, a pillar of calm amidst the small chaos of passing life. Its role is not to move quickly or dominate. It is to exist, quietly supporting life, providing shade, shelter, and stability. Its service is subtle but profound. The wind brushes against its needles. The rain drips gently along its branches. Sunlight warms its trunk, and the soil below nourishes its roots. Time is slow, and the pine moves with it, neither resisting nor rushing. Its stillness is not emptiness, it is presence, wisdom, and quiet understanding of the forest's rhythm. After 100 years, the pine has become more than just a tree. It is a testament to patience, endurance, and quiet strength. It has survived storms, witnessed generations of animals, and observed countless cycles of seasons and growth. Yet it asks for nothing. It simply exists. Its stillness is a gift, both to itself and to the forest around it. And so the pine continues, rooted, calm, and steady. 100 years of breathing, growing, and enduring have shaped it into a quiet monument of life. The forest shifts around it, as it always does. But the pine remains, a century of stillness, patience, and quiet wisdom, perfectly at home in the slow, unfolding rhythm of the world. As the day fades, the forest enters its gentle, quiet transformation. Shadows stretch long across the forest floor, and the golden light of late afternoon slowly softens into the muted hues of evening. For the pine, 100 years old and deeply rooted, this daily ritual is familiar, comforting, and entirely unremarkable, except, perhaps, in the beauty of its subtlety. Night returns to the forest not abruptly, but gradually. The last rays of sun filter through the canopy, casting dappled patterns on the needles of the pine and the forest floor below. Birds settle into their nests, their songs slowing to soft chirps and eventual silence. Insects become quieter, their hums fading as darkness deepens. Even the wind eases, brushing only gently against the pine's branches. The pine, rooted and still, does not move in excitement or fear. It simply exists, absorbing the cool air, the shifting light, and the calm hush that comes with nightfall. Its needles glisten faintly with dew forming in the cool air. Each tiny drop a reminder of the day that has passed and the night that now begins. Animals that are active at night start to stir. Owls call softly in the distance. Small mammals scurry across the forest floor, careful to avoid larger predators. The pine senses their presence, not consciously, but through the subtle vibrations in the soil and the shifts in air currents. It has grown accustomed to these quiet interactions, understanding without thought that life continues even when humans are absent. Even when the world seems dark and still, night brings its own rhythm, slower, more deliberate than the day. The moon rises, casting a pale glow through gaps in the canopy. Shadows stretch and shift in the cool, silver light. The forest breathes gently in this dim illumination. Leaves rustle softly, water trickles from needles, and the wind whispers faintly through branches. The pine bends slightly with each gust, just enough to sway, but it remains grounded, steady, and calm. Over the centuries, the pine has learned that night is not something to fear. It is part of the cycle. It is a time for quiet reflection, for subtle growth, for the deepening of roots and strength. Darkness is not emptiness. It is full of life, just in forms that are less obvious, more delicate, and easily overlooked. Raindrops occasionally fall in the evening, tapping softly on the needles. Their rhythm is almost musical, lulling the forest into a deeper, slower calm. The pine, having endured storms over decades, accepts the rain with serenity. It bends slightly, absorbs what it can, and lets the rest pass. Night teaches patience in the same way storms do. Through quiet presence and steady endurance, the temperature drops, cooling the forest and slowing the activity of its inhabitants. Flowers close, insects rest, and even the forest floor seems to inhale, pausing in anticipation of the coming day. The pine stands unmoved by these changes, an anchor in the soft, flowing rhythms of the forest's nocturnal life. Night is not a pause in life, it is another layer of it. The pine feels the continuity, the gentle persistence of growth and existence, even in darkness. The forest does not sleep, not truly. It rests, shifts, breathes, and adapts. And the pine, 100 years old, continues its quiet work of observation, growth, and endurance. As the hours pass, the moon arcs slowly across the sky. Stars twinkle faintly through gaps in the canopy, tiny points of light illuminating the dark world. The forest moves in unison with this slow dance. The pine stands steady, embracing the stillness, understanding the deep calm that night brings, and growing in ways invisible to the eyes of casual observers. Night returns, not as an ending, but as a continuation, a subtle, patient rhythm in the forest's long story. The pine remains at its center, a century-old witness to countless cycles of day and night, storms and calm, growth and rest. It endures quietly, deeply, steadily, living not in the drama of events, but in the stillness of presence, the patient unfolding of life, and the serene beauty of time itself. The pine has lived a long, quiet life. 100 years have passed in gentle rhythm, rain and wind, sun and snow, storms that bent but did not break, seasons that shaped and nurtured. It has grown steadily, unnoticed by the world beyond the forest, and entirely unbothered by the lack of attention. Its life has been unremarkable in the most extraordinary way. Now, as decades accumulate toward the later stages of its century, the forest settles into a calm, reflective pace. Light filters softly through the canopy, dappling its needles in patterns that have shifted slowly over the decades. The wind moves only gently, a reminder of all the storms it has endured. Birds perch nearby, calling softly, insects hum their constant songs, and small mammals move across the forest floor without pause. Life continues around the pine, constant and patient as it always has. The pine itself stands taller, fuller, stronger than most could imagine when it first sprouted as a tiny seedling. Its roots dig deep into the earth, entwined with neighboring trees, stabilizing the soil and nourishing the forest around it in ways it cannot even perceive. Its branches provide shelter to countless generations of birds, insects, and small animals. Its presence is a quiet service, uncelebrated but essential. No grand event marks the passing of its years. No human observes its life with awe or records its story in detail. Storms come and go, rain nourishes, and sunlight warms its needles. Animals move, seasons change, and the forest grows around it. The pine does not mind, for it has learned that the extraordinary often lies in consistency, patience, and quiet endurance rather than in spectacle or recognition. The decades continue to layer gently. Even in stillness, life moves. Leaves fall and decompose, seedlings emerge, moss spreads. Insects, birds, and mammals perform their ordinary tasks, all unnoticed by the wider world, but all essential to the slow rhythm of existence. The pine absorbs these lessons, not consciously, but in every inch of its growth, in every sway of its branches, and every stretch of its roots. Eventually, the pine's growth slows. Its needles may not glisten as vividly as before, and some branches may droop slightly under the weight of years. But there is no hurry. There is no need for drama. Time has taught it the art of stillness and the power of enduring quietly. Its life is measured not in grand achievements, but in patient observation, subtle adaptation, and calm resilience. And so the pine reaches its unremarkable ending, not in a sudden fall, nor in a dramatic storm, but in quiet presence. It continues to breathe, sway gently with the wind, and exist in harmony with the forest around it. Its life, though unseen and mostly unremarked upon, has mattered in the smallest and most enduring ways. The forest continues. Light filters through the canopy. Rain nourishes the soil, wind brushes through leaves, birds sing, insects hum, and animals pass by. And the pine remains a century-old testament to the quiet rhythm of life, the gentle accumulation of years, and the simple truth that sometimes the most extraordinary stories are the ones that go unnoticed. Life does not need to be celebrated to be significant. It does not need to be loud to be enduring. In its quiet, patient way, the pine has lived fully, contributed without seeking recognition, and rested finally in the simple, unremarkable grace of existence itself.